Most of us have heard of no-line watercoloring, but have you tried no-line ink blending? In today's video, I'm going to show you how I achieved this look using the October 2022 Marvelous Monthly Craft Your Life Project Kit Casual Bouquets. No-line ink blending is actually not too difficult to achieve, and it gives a gorgeous look that's just perfect for coloring and layering stencils. Hi guys, welcome back to another stylish card making techniques video. Today I am going to be showing you how I get that no line look using colouring stencils. I'm going to be featuring the Casual Bouquets Craft Your Life Project Kit. It was released in October 2022 and it comes with an embossing folder that you can use to emboss two of the images in the coordinating stamp set. And these stamps, if you look closely, are actually sort of mirror images of each other. There's two different images sort of flipped around. That's great for using to sort of bookend sides of cards. And then there's a layering, colouring stencil and coordinating dies. The colouring stencil, if I give you a closer look at it, has 4 different stencils in the set. So you can see they're etched onto them which is which, and they are segmented up. So you can see these embossed lines sort of separating up the images, and that tells you which layer is which. So you don't want to mix them together. They're separate layers, just cut out of the same area of the stencil. I'm going to be using Nina Solar white cardstock. I've trimmed it to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. You don't have to for this one because we're going to be die cutting it out. And then I've taken my first stencil. This is stencil number 1. It has the leaves on it. And I am using the Sunray Crisp Dye Ink to ink blend onto those leaf areas. And I did off camera use the stamp set just to make sure that I had a properly lined up the stencil so that it wouldn't go off the edge of the cardstock, because I am going to be die cutting this out. And I'm using a small ink blending tool. These are the detail blending tools. I can press more heavily on the areas that I want to be darker with the Sunray ink. So whilst I've got this nice two-tone look, I am literally only using one colour. I've then gone back to my stencil again. This is still the same number 1 stencil. And I've lined up the other halves of the leaves. So that's the middle area of stencil 1. And I've chosen a different color of ink. This is chamomile or chamomile. And I want that sort of inner part of the leaf to be the darkest. That's where the leaf fold is. So I'm coming in more from an angle and sort of pushing down with some flicks to get that first area, which is the edge of the middle of the leaf, a little darker. I then can come in with that third part of the stencil, and this is super easy to line up at this point. You can definitely see where all of these areas need to be. And I'm coming in with some hazelnut just to add in some depth on those stems. So you've got the center of the leaves with those stems and then a little branch off to the side. I'm now coming in with stencil 2. And I have the number 2 facing upwards. Just be careful you have it facing the right way. And I can fit that top right corner of the stencil in almost like a jigsaw puzzle into where I've ink blended my leaves. I don't have any lines here to guide me, and that's the tricky bit with no line ink blending, is how to fit each part of your layer. And so you need to look for the little clues, and there are these little notches in the edges of the leaves where they're looking for a petal. And so I use that top right corner to go in first. I'm using Coral Bliss for one of the leaves. I'm taking that same approach of ink blending harder down in the areas where I think it would have more depth and fading out towards the edge of the petals. And then I chose to make the other floral different color. This is Ocean Waves. It's sort of a nice bright blue color, adding that depth just towards the base of each of the petals and then taking off the pressure as I fade it out. So you can see now I'm starting to leave some open areas that make it easier for me to start lining up my other petals. So the map is starting to come together. And that's really the sort of trick here, is to look for areas that look like you can fit a puzzle piece in, and look for that puzzle piece on your stencil. For my second layer, I am using Pink Pearl and Arctic. And I'm going to get nice sort of variation in color across my florals using that approach. And then for my third layer, you can see there's an area there. It's really easy to line up at this point, and I can just make sure I eyeball it so that that right-hand side petal area is lined up as well. And I'm coming in with some Heartbeat Crisp Dye Ink for my red flower, and then for my blue flower, I'm going to be using Dusk Crisp Dye Ink. So I've got two completely different colored flowers on the same plant. Sure, in nature that happens all the time, but I just really liked how these colors all went together. And then it's very straightforward to just come in with the flower centers. I'm going to come back with my Sunray just to ink up those flower centers, and then to add a little tiny bit of depth, come in with the Hazelnut and just do a very, very, very light flick with an angle off the side, and it gives a little bit of depth. And look at that, you've got this gorgeous ink blended no line look. Now I'm going to come in with one of the dies and die cut this out because I want to dry emboss this. The embossing folder that comes with the project kit perfectly lines up with these images, at least two of them. So I'm just going to off camera do spend a little bit of time lining this up. You can use tape to make sure that it doesn't move around. I didn't. I lined it up, closed my folder, and then run it through my die cutting machine, and it perfectly dry embosses. So you can see it in the shadow, and gives this gorgeous depth. Again, still though, no lines. I love this look. I love it. Now I want to keep my cards pretty clean and simple. I am going to stamp the sentiment directly onto the card panel. I'm using these big sort of swirly sentiments. I love that font. And I haven't adhered my floral at this point. It was just placed in my MISTI to line up. And I nearly used Obsidian pigment ink, but at the last minute I changed to Antique Gold pigment ink. I thought because I've got that soft look, no line look, it's very soft, I wanted a softer ink color as well. And I thought the Antique Gold would work perfectly. So I'm sending virtual hugs. I love the way that sentiment comes together. And it's a little bit more unique compared to some of the other sentiments I've got in my stash. So I like this one, especially as I'm still working from home. I don't know about you guys. And it's very apt. Now I'm going to add a few splatters. I've spritzed it onto a clear acrylic block. I'm going to pick it up with a paintbrush, an old paintbrush, and add some flicks. I like to use a small paintbrush for this rather than doing it straight out of the bottle itself because I can control it better. And then I'm going to use my Instant Dimension foam tape to pop up those flowers, and I used 2 layers because I wanted some extra dimension there. And that basically finishes the card. I'm going to come in and add a little bit of detailing with a gel pen here and there, just a little line and 2 dots on every leaf, on every petal, and a few dots in the flower centers with a gold and white gel pen, and add it onto a note card. That finishes my first card. I love how this turned out. And by the way, you can do this with any of the stencils in your stash. The trick is knowing how to line them up, and you can see you can look for those clues that look like the jigsaw puzzle. Now again, I'm going to use my stamp set to make sure I can line up the image. This time I'm using stencils 3 and 4 from the set, and they are used to create that other floral, that one that looks like it's got some sort of lily sticking off the side. And I wanted to make this a 1-layer card. I'm going to do 2 of the flowers, and you'll see how you can use the layering stencils actually for both different directions of the flowers. So it's brilliant, this set, absolutely genius. So I'm going to use the exact same approach again. I'm using the same ink colors for the leaves. This is, and actually for the flowers as well, this is Sunray and Hazelnut and Chamomile. And then again, I'm looking for those little clues that the leaves are giving me to be able to fit my first layer of petals. And that's always the hardest. And you'll see that stem that's floating off on its own. I can line up the base of the lily, and then I can look at the stamp set off camera and see how those bottom blue petals sort of line up against that base stem, that one right near the bottom of the card panel. And after that it becomes really easy because once you've ink blended the petals, it starts showing up all these other areas that are easy to fit the rest of the layers in. It's just that first layer of petals. Use your stamp set off camera to work out where things need to go, and look for the clues that your leaves will have given you to line up that first layer. So I'm using those same blues and those same reds again. And for the berries, I came in with the blue and the red overlapped. And so it gives this really nice dark blue-purple color. Now, for my next flower, it's the same flower again, a mirror image. All you have to do is flip over the stencil. So I'm now using the back of the stencil. This is why it's so genius. And I have an exact mirror image because I am just blending the same thing again, the same image again, just from the other side, and it all lines up perfectly. And I get this gorgeous look of a one-layer card with the two florals facing each other. And you'll see in the die set that actually Altenew has said, we know people are going to do this, and we're going to give you the dies to cut out those mirror images, and we're going to give you the stamps to stamp out those mirror images. It's just really, really, really clever. I like the way this created a center for my sentiment, so I'm coming in with the antique gold pigment ink again, stamping lovely, and then again with another sub-sentiment or super sentiment over the top and a few splatters. And that basically finishes both of my cards. One's a one layer, the other is a dry embossed die cut out flower, both using that same no line ink blending look. And I just love this technique. I absolutely love it. That look you get, it's just so soft and pretty, don't you think? Off camera, I did add a few clear drops here and there to give it a little bit of shine, but without too much sparkle. And they are both overlaid onto £110 white note cards folded at the top. And that finishes both my cards. I hope this inspires you to grab your layering stencils or your coloring stencils and give that no line ink blended look a go. I think you'll really love it, and I suspect you're going to use it again and again. I know I am. I hope you enjoyed and I inspired you. If you did, leave us a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to Altenew's channel. Have a good day. Bye.
Hello crafters, Jen here. For more tips, techniques, tutorials, and to discover which paper crafting products are right for you, subscribe to Altenew's YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Thanks for watching.